Ladies and gentlemen, this is not Cordkillers. If you came for Cordkillers, you came to the wrong place. It's not the wrong place. It's the right place. It's the right place for spoilering shows. The reason you watch Cordkillers is to be able to use the services and the devices to watch the shows you want. And then after you watch them, you want to talk about them with someone. And that's what you're here for. Spoilerin Time is going to spoil Justified, episode 1 of season 6, The Leftovers, episode 1 of season 3, Better Call Saul, episode 1 of season 3, and The Expanse, episode 12 of season 2. I'm Tom Merritt.
Clear as mud, Tom. I think what Tom meant to say is Cordkillers be about news. Spoilerin Time be about talking about shows.
That's racist.
Wait, what? To whom? To spoilerin people?
I don't know. Hey, you know what? Before we start going down that right hole, let's bring in our guest. C. Robert Cargill is joining us to spoil some things. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. I'm joining you for a small period of time, so I'm very excited about getting to be that. I wish I were caught up on all these shows so that I could enjoy the rest of the podcast with you guys. But this is stuff I plan on watching, so I kind of don't want it ruined.
I like the idea of the spoiler ripcord, that we arrange the shows in such an order that at some point the guest just goes, peace out.
Yeah, now those
don't
of you who are used to those of you used to Justified being the last thing, it's not going to be the case because that is the one we are going to talk to Cargill about. So that'll lead us off, but not before we do
the summer movie draft.
Which honestly, it's really the whole reason we booked you, Cargill, is so that we could talk about the summer movie draft. Fate of the Furious. Wait a minute, what happened?
What do you mean? What happened?
Saw 100 million earlier today, and now it only says 98.
Because today is actuals.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that the numbers you see on Sunday are projected, and then on Monday the actuals come out. And sometimes they're not always what they were projected at.
I shake my tiny little fist, but it's still pretty good. 98 million for Fate of the Furious. And Smurfs actually boosted up to 24 million, which honestly, as bad as that is better than I expected.
I got to tell you, no. As a matter of fact, dollar for dollar is dollar for dollar. Smurfs was your better buy than Fate of the Furious. So far. What?
So here's the thing. This is what's really important. What we just saw this weekend is scary. Fate of the Furious made $98 million versus Furious 7's $147 million domestic opening. It saw a 33% drop in attendance. 6 million fewer people of the 18 million people that went out and saw Furious 7 didn't show up for this one. And not only is that bad for the draft, for your having drafted it, because it's not going to make that 350 million that we were talking about previously. But on top of that, what the hell does this mean for all the other franchises that we have gained? Is this one of the, are we seeing a repeat of the summer of 87, which after a poorly performing summer of 86, we ended up seeing a bunch of sure things not do very well at all. And I'm curious, like this for me, this is really bad for Transformers. If Transformers doesn't perform very well, that's a big hurting on us. But I see a bunch of these larger franchises underperforming this summer. If Fast and the Furious, something that no matter what the quality is, the audience always really enjoys it, and the last film was as good as it was, not doing this well, this could be a really bumpy game changer of a summer.
Yeah. I don't know where to put Fate of the Furious because it has such a loyal following. It shouldn't have made it to 8 movies. It's not an expanded universe, although maybe it is. Maybe that's kind of the way that audience sees it. Normally I would look at an 8th movie and a sequel and say, well, of course it fell off. But you're right. Like the last movie got really good reviews and it was expected to do more. And it actually did better worldwide. Yeah. It did gangbusters in China. It was the U.S. where it had this falling off.
Well, and that's why I think you'll continue to see those movies get made, but you'll also see. Keep in mind we're also in the middle of an earthquake to the movie industry, and that Blumhouse has figured out that you can get really quirky, small, independent, very cheaply made pictures that can maybe eventually become franchises, but by placing a bunch of small bets. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot more of that action on the domestic side. Those more budget conscious movies that can be very profitable. But meanwhile, these blockbusters, they're not going to stop making them. It's too easy to dub them into every language and send them all over the world now.
People keep asking in the chat about, they're mentioning the fact that this had a huge worldwide opening, which it did. And in terms of worldwide, that's really great. But for the draft, we aren't doing worldwide. We're only doing domestic. Yep. So that's why we're talking about this the way we are, just to catch everybody up.
So now, The Circle is the Team Cordkillers movie that comes out this week. It's Tom Hanks, based on the book. It'll do nicely, but it's not a blockbuster. The next blockbuster on our slate is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, coming out May 5th. Is that an exception to the rule, or is it the next bellwether, in your opinion, Cargill?
Well, it's the exception. Marvel plays by different rules than everyone else because just having the Marvel brand on it guarantees a certain audience because they built a brand, and they built a brand that says we're going to offer quality, we're going to offer a good time at the theater, and we're going to offer it for the whole family. So it is definitely, and it's what I talked about on my previous appearance, where you can almost set your watch by how much Guardians is probably going to make. Like, it is not, there's a certain ceiling it's not going to go above. It's certainly not going to become an Avatar where it's like, oh my God, it made $600 million domestically. But at the same time, it's also going to do incredibly well and beat the crap out of all the competition, which is why all the major competition scoots out of the way of Marvel is, in fact, Trolls, which opened against my movie Doctor Strange, was the first time in years that Marvel had any competition open on the same day against one of its films, because everyone knows what this market is and how much is going to be chewed off of it. So nobody even bothers to line up to get their butt kicked. And Trolls was like, we're going to counter program just enough that we think we're going to do well, and they did do well. So that's I think that's going to be a movie that's going to be immune from the rest of this. But the other franchises, like, how is Pirates going to do? How is Transformers going to do? How is The Mummy going to do? That's the stuff that I'm very curious to see about.
So the release date on Guardians of the Galaxy, and hear me out, I don't mind, or I wouldn't blame any of you guys for being skeptical, including the people at home. Avengers came out May 5th weekend and made $600 million. Avengers Age of Ultron came out May 5th weekend and made $460 million. This feels like we are ready for another chapter. We know that the Guardians come to Earth. Wonder if they end up meeting all the Avengers there, and it's pretty much an Avengers movie all of a sudden. I do think, like, if Guardians does... If it gets over 500,000 or 500 million, I'm calling that a definite win. I will not be upset if it cracks 4 to 420. I'd be okay with all that.
It's going to do 3 to 350.
I don't believe. Okay, I think we're falling into the same trap that we did with me and Justin argued about how Logan was going to do, and he kept pointing to the Wolverine movies as the benchmark. And I said, but you shouldn't be doing that. You should be comparing it to Deadpool. It's not a better Wolverine movie. It's a crappier Deadpool, and it did crappier, slightly crappier than Deadpool numbers. And I think this is not a good Guardians movie. This is a lesser Avengers movie.
But the problem is that none of the Avengers are showing up in it. It's only Guardians of the Galaxy, and they haven't changed the model. With Logan, they went from making PG-13 movies where the studio was interfering to making a rated R movie where the director had complete control of the movie, and made a movie that everyone lost their minds for, and through word of mouth sustained for quite some time.
Correct, but
I don't think anything's going to change here. No one in along the line has changed here. You're going to get the quality that you got from the last movie, which is great. And I think that the only difference will be they'll bring in more people who waited to see it on DVD who are going to say, I'm going to see it big this time. So I think it'll do better, not worse, but I don't think I don't imagine it's going to do Avengers numbers or even Age of Ultron numbers.
What did domestic do? Domestic box office for Guardians was...
like 300?
Yeah, 330. So then, so 330. If it gets a 20% bump over the previous one, or a 30% bump, that would put it over 400 million, which I don't think we're too far off. Maybe our reasons are slightly different, but I think we're pretty close.
How you feeling about your lineup?
I will be surprised, be elated if it does 400. I want nothing more than Marvel movies to do better and better and to bring in more audiences. Because even if I don't make another Marvel movie again, man, do I love those guys and I love what they're making. So that will make me thrilled. So I don't want my dourness here to be anything more than just pure speculation on the game we're playing, as opposed to, dude, I would love everybody to love Guardians because I want them to keep making Guardians movies. I don't want them to stop at 3. I want James Gunn to do this for the next 10 years.
For 100 years, RickandMorty.com.
That's sriracha sauce.
6 seasons in a movie.
That's my story arc. There's a sriracha sauce that came out.
Sriracha or Szechuan?
But it's not sriracha.
Szechuan
sauce.
Szechuan. There's a Szechuan sauce. Yeah. Hey, let's move on to talking about Justified. Seems weird.
Yeah, dude. So
you didn't tell me how Chips did. How did Chips do, guys? I hear it's doing very well.
You know what? We were trying to be nice.
It's a kindness that we do for you.
How do you feel about how Chips did at 17 million, Cargill? I'm sorry, 17.9.
I think it really kind of bombed, which kind of sucks for everyone involved. But we're doing all right. We didn't count on those those movies were our buffer movies. We just don't have a buffer anymore. So like if what we were talking about, if Transformers underperforms, if Baywatch doesn't do well, if Cars 3 does poorly, then we're definitely hosed. We don't have that buffer zone anymore.
Yeah, right. You got a lot of other hedges though. You've got a wide lineup.
We still have 4 other movies because the one that I didn't mention was Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets, which could also be a surprise hit if it gets Guardians juice. Sure. We'll see.
So Justified season. This isn't the last season we're on, right?
This is the final season.
6 is the final season, baby.
I'll tell you what.
Season 6.
Everything about this first episode felt different. It felt like they cared. They punched everything forward. There was motion.
They focused. We had a clear conflict between Raylan and Boyd. Classic. Let's just focus on these two.
Yes. I don't. I watched it right at the beginning, just after last week's episode. So you're probably gonna have to remind me of half the stuff that happened on it.
Well, basically, Art's still incapacitated. He makes a brief appearance, but he's not running things. So they let Raylan be Ava's handler, which we kind of knew from the last episode of last season. And she is supposed to spy on Boyd. She does a horrible job of spying on Boyd in this episode. They want to go after Dewey, but it turns out that there's a lot of legal problems with Dewey's tape, and they can't bring it into court, and so Dewey feels like he's got to get out of jail free card, and of course in Dewey fashion overplays it, and Boyd takes advantage of that to get him in some trouble and use him as a decoy while Boyd moves the heroin, and so it's all pretty much a very standard, Raylan's trying to catch Boyd barely outmaneuvers him.
I wouldn't mind, it is kind of a weird sexual dynamic that Raylan really has his thumb on Ava and is pushing her so hard for information and be like, hey man, you're only here, you go back to jail or whatever. I wouldn't mind seeing a rekindling of the attraction that we saw in the very first season. In fact, it seems like that would be an obvious play to do, since so much of this is really just a retelling of the first. This season appears to be a macro version of just that first episode, basically.
And also, the doctor from the Mindy Project shows up with a suitcase full of cash and tries to buy Arlo's house, and Raylan's very suspicious, but we don't know why the guy wants to buy it, which introduces a new character and a little subplot there.
Yeah, right on. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm super excited about it. Hey, without spoiling us, Cargill, what can you tell us that would get us super pumped about this last season? Because season 5, spoiler alert, we were not big fans of.
Well, if season 5 is the one where several people aren't entirely on board with it. I did really enjoy season 5. It has one of my favorite moments of the series. But the one in which the knife fight versus the gunfight, that just is one of my favorite Raylan moments. But season 6 is the summation of everything they've done over 5 seasons. All the pieces they lay out finally get brought in, and it has one of the greatest final lines and final scenes of any TV show I've ever watched. You are going to see everything you want to see. The show has essentially, every season is a different crime that Raylan gets brought in on, a different, series of things that happen. But the show overarching is The Godfather, watching Boyd Crowder go from being small time to being big time. And you're also watching the evolution of Raylan. And this season is entirely about the final development of who Raylan is going to become and who Boyd is going to become, and how everyone else in Harlan is affected by that. And it is note perfect through the entire season. I absolutely love this. Oh, and the villains this season that you were about to meet are 2 great, amazing actors from the 80s who totally bring it. I will not spoil who they are, but once they show up, their appearances in this season define this season in the best way possible, and you will absolutely love it.
This is how we got to do Spoilerin Time, Tom, is we need somebody to tease us and get us all pumped up about it, man.
Yeah. Raise our expectations through the roof like that. But I'm excited. This is what I want out of season 6. This is what I've been hoping to hear. So
good deal.
Yes. At the end of the day, Justified became one of my favorite shows ever, because it is in fact, Jess and I have been talking about revisiting it again and watching it just beginning to end, because it is such a great journey.
Awesome.
All right. Before we get into spoiling The Expanse, and before we let you go, Cargill, I want you to raise your right hand and promise to give this show a try. As we were talking in the pre-show, I know there wasn't as much buzz as there should have been season 1, but I've been a fan of these books since the first one came out. I'm a fan of Ty and Daniel, the authors that make up James S.A. Corey, and I think that this team at Sci-Fi has done an incredible job of translating that to the screen in a way that, thankfully, I think Brian bears out, is incredibly enjoyable, even if you've never even heard of the books.
Yeah, specifically, I mean, what I love about it is the scope. Wow. Firefly did a really clever thing in that they solved a lot of the space fantasy elements by just, no, they're not on Earth. This is all in a solar system, but it's a very peculiar one that has a lot of worlds. So you can get on your space truck and go from planet to planet. That is the same conceit with a slightly more advanced, but not completely implausible technology. And it's right here in our own backyard, our solar system. And I think I was talking to Bonnie about this, Tom. I think part of the reason that it resonates with me is I deeply loved the Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars trilogy by Kim Stanley Robinson. And I loved it because it made the solar system a real place in my mind, little things like, of course the Martian day is 24 and a half hours and stuff. In those concrete terms, I think that The Expanse does much the same thing.
So Cargill, are you ready to take the pledge?
I am. I've actually, it's been on my radar, but the problem is just nobody, I never had anybody give me that sell. Nobody I've trusted has said, dude, you need to watch this. And I've been seeing more and more articles about it online. The buzz has been, cutting through the static, and I've been thinking, maybe I should check this out. Now that I know you guys are in love with this, I'm in. I will. I'll pick up the first season and blow through it. Just like
you sold us on the next season of Justified. Understand going into it that the star of the first season is the simmering Cold War, three-pole Cold War between Earth, Mars, and the Belt. There are people, but I spent most of the first season just kind of seeing them as players in the game, like this football game size. Oh, those guys are moving over there. That's over there. The second season is where the individual characters really shine, and the actors, you could tell they knew that they were onto something because everybody shows up fitter and toned and more focused in that second season. You could tell that they're like, oh, we're going to have 7 seasons of being real stars, and they're bringing their A game for sure.
Nice.
Well, we'll definitely have you back once you've dived in and get your impressions on it. But thanks for joining us, man. It was good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It was a pleasure.
All right, buddy, take care.
Go follow Cargill on Twitter, Massaworm, MASSAWYRM, and elsewhere as well. What's your podcast again? Mention that for folks.
Junk Food Cinema. You can find it on iTunes, on Stitcher. You can also find it streamed live from the web from filmschoolrejects.com.
All right, thanks again, man.
Rad.
Good night. Bye, everybody.
See you, bud. Dude, we got an email from Mike Kepper. He said, or Keeper. He says, Brian, Tom, and Bryce, the Expanse sure has gotten dark. I sympathized with the Belters, but they're going to extremes now. The old us versus them syndrome, which dehumanizes both parties, spacing inners and trying to seize control of the missiles to use against Martians and Earth. The Belters are turning into suicide terrorists. Mars apparently is dappling in biowar with their own proto-life forms. Earth is condensing towards all spacers and acting superior like hereditary emperors. They've all fallen into the old us versus them mindset, which dooms them all, like the Nazi treaty. Okay, well, then we get into World War II.
I think first of all, not all Belters, right? Like, there's Tycho Station, there's Naomi Nagata, then there's those guys who spaced a bunch of inners. Like, they're all over the spectrum. But yeah, it's turning dark.
Yeah, well, and I guess that's what I love about it. I love complicated, and you know what? A side effect of the darkness is, the darker it gets, the more human it feels, which is strange because in the case of Belters, they are the least human representations of human that we've seen in sci-fi in a while because, they've built their own culture. They're more isolated. And, I'm sure in the books that they're even taller and lankier and less, traditionally human looking. And yet their plight is the most human, and feeling isolated and alone. I did not think I was going to enjoy watching the bickering and fighting about who gets to get on the one escape ship. But ultimately, I utterly believed that just this flat out, we are not all going, period, full stop. And this is how it's going to be. And you man up because we are Belters. And it was like, it was a chill-inducing moment, man. I was really,
it was
great.
Hell of a payoff because I wasn't sure that was going to work. This is not something that plays out this way in the book. And that doesn't really matter. But I don't want you to think I had like some insight into how this was going to play out. I was watching it going like, I don't know how they're going to resolve this. And I don't believe just going out and talking is going to do it any more than the pilot of that ship does. But what I had forgotten was they had built all of us up in the Belter ethos and how important air is and how there's a different Belter respect for the conservation of resources. And that it's been a subtle thing through these season and a half, but that all paid off because as soon as that moment happened, we're like, hey, there's not enough air in there for all of us. You saw all of them go, oh, well, this is something we all understand, right?
Right.
This is the third rail of Belter politics, and we all have to rethink our positions here.
And the tactical showdown of just the Rocinante coming in and just says, "I will destroy anyone who fires upon me." Period. And then it's just like, well, somebody's gonna fire, and then it's just like, nope. The logic: if this, then that, then blah, and then
total game theory, right? Yeah.
Then son of a bitch. There it is.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I didn't really love Holden as the maniac who's like, no, it's my white whale, the blue guy. We must keep going. I thought they overplayed that a little bit, but in the end, especially, I think they got us to where we needed to be with that.
I mean, especially because, and they haven't indicated this, but it's too perfect, and it just has to be. Like, it's been obvious for 4 episodes now that the blue guy is that dude's daughter, and that now she's on the ship or whatever. Like, as a result, some of that tension rings false because we know he's not going to get the blue guy because the blue guy has to turn out to be the daughter.
I don't think the blue guy will be his daughter.
Interesting. All right,
but I think it would be cooler if they kill it and we never find out.
Oh, that would be interesting. That
and
would
it's just
be
his word against Holden's,
I'll tell you what I loved. And I full on there's nothing I love more than being fooled. It's so great. And you've heard me say this phrase before. Teller said, "The heart of all good magic is surprise. Put 2 and 2 in front of me. Convince me it's 5, then reveal the truth 4." And that's exactly what we got with, who's Christian's other guy that is going on trial for being all proto-molecule creator?
Yeah. I don't remember his name
Like,
right now.
you spent
Either
all
it's kind of like a
episode
Slavic name.
watching him. Oh man, he's really steeling himself for a long battle where they're going to drag him through the mud. Oh wait, he's making amends in a lot of ways. Oh crap, he's definitely holding a curious capsule and then it's like, nope. He's hard as balls and a ruthless MFer, man.
I almost was getting mad and thinking like, this seems like a really abrupt change for him, right? Like, I don't know if I totally buy that he would just surrender like that. Oh, well, guess what? He didn't.
But they did just enough of making it to where it's like, man, that really, I guess, yeah, if you bet everything and then you lose, you got nothing left. He's got his honor, and that will clean things up for Christian and so on. And instead it's just like, oh no, things are really complicated and only getting more difficult.
Sadavir is his name.
Sadavir.
That's why I could never remember it. Yeah. No, I think this is great. And I'm ready to get the Rossi crew back together again. And I think that looks like that's going to happen in this next episode. But honestly, one of the funner parts for me is these plot lines, while staying in the realm of what happens in the books, are not following what happened in the books so closely anymore. And so I'm getting to have that fun of like, I don't know exactly what's going to happen next.
You're getting
changed,
you're getting the Game of Thrones effect.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
awesome. That's great.
Totally fun. Let's talk about Better Call Saul, season 3, episode 1. We kind of pick up right where we left off with the cassette tape that was made by Jimmy's brother, and kind of was left as a cliffhanger of this is going to ruin his life. And we find out in the course of the episode that it's basically inadmissible, and Jimmy's brother knew that and doesn't care because he thinks he can use it some other way. So the first plot line here is what is he really going to do with that tape to get Jimmy? We also have, Jimmy having some troubles at the workplace where he's just not fitting in, which I think we all expected with his girlfriend's way of working there. We also see him painting over the rainbow at the end, which is kind of a minor note, but do you think we get the Constitution here?
Oh, I don't think we're ready for that level.
Is it too early for
Jimmy
that? I'm like,
McGill.
something's going in there though. So it's gotta be, right?
Yeah.
American flag, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, the question is, like, do we start to see him transform into the cartoon? That's a good question. I do like I like the fact that he's getting blowback from some of his misdeeds, but he's learning how to become comfortable with constantly being in check. A good game of chess is all the pieces threatening all the other pieces, knowing that at any moment everything can move really fast. And I think we're seeing Jimmy McGill enter that world where he's comfortable with all the pieces threatening everyone else. And I do like that they didn't make the tape. I do like that they kept the tape there. It's Chekhov's tape now, and I'm sure it'll show up at some point, but it's not the atom bomb that it felt like in that moment.
Well, and his assistant's name Ernie, I think, but he very clearly
Ernesto,
thank you. Ernie, short for Ernesto. He clearly wants Ernesto to have heard it. So that's part of the plan.
Yeah. And what else do we got? What other elements?
We've got Mike trying to figure out how they tracked his car, because he comes back from not shooting someone with there's the note that says don't do it. He tears apart the entire car at a junkyard, spends all day, can't find what it is, finally notices that they sell replacement fuel caps when he's waiting for a cab, runs back out, finds out it's the fuel cap, and then of course it's brilliant Mike maneuvering from there to get his contact to buy him a replica of the transmitter and swap it in so that he can follow who it is that was tracking him.
I'll tell you what, man, Mike Ehrmantraut as hard-boiled PI detective is my favorite thread of all of his. That one that was nothing but his backstory was just fantastic.
Now, the other weird thing is we get the black and white future version of Saul after he's gone into witness protection, and it looks like it's just going to be another day in his life at Cinnabon. He even has a little vignette where he's sitting on a bench trying to eat his lunch on his lunch break and sees the kid who stole some DVDs and ends up pointing him out, but then yells, "Get a lawyer," to the kid. And that just seems like a funny tension for him. He's like, "I'm in witness protection, dude. I can't, I don't want to not aid the cops and get in trouble for that, but then I feel bad for the kid." And then goes back and passes out. And if I remember this right, we don't get these black and white things every episode. It's the beginning and the ending episodes, right?
Yeah. Well, and I've theorized since I think the first episode that we watched that eventually this series will chronologically go past Breaking Bad, and I'm only feeling more and more confident like that as each year. Now, granted, it's only the third season and our third vignette. Although we had one at the end of the season too, right?
Yeah. I think we had one at the beginning and the end.
Yeah,
right?
I think we're going to start seeing a little more interstitial
So
stuff.
cliffhanger for this till the end of the season,
I
or
don't
you think
so.
We'll get more.
I think they're going to start showing us these vignettes at the beginning of each episode, maybe.
All right.
We also got
shall
Kim.
Shall we move along?
Oh yeah, Kim at the new gig.
Yeah,
right?
she's like starting to get real kind of insecure about this big client while she's on her own.
Yep.
She goes back and rewrites that letter 3 or 4 times,
making virtually no changes.
Well, she wants to make sure that she doesn't make the mistake that that was made before, even though that was an introduced mistake. She doesn't know that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. One side note, this is the first time that I went back to watching on Sling TV. Also the first time I was able to enjoy it truly on demand. And it was a fine experience that way.
Did you DVR it or you just did on demand?
I just did on demand. Look, the very responsibility of DVRing things in advance, I can't be bothered to.
All right.
That's not my job. It's your job to make it easy for me to pluck everything off a tree.
I like having the ability to do the on-demand DVR, especially when it works the way it's supposed to work, which is I put a plus mark next to a show I want to like, and that's it. I never have to think about it again.
Yeah.
Let's go on to The Leftovers, episode 1, season 3. And
ready?
I'm going to be honest, Brian.
Yeah.
I did this as my job. I sat down at 10 o'clock last night and was like, all right, one last thing before I can go to sleep. I have to watch The Leftovers. And I was pulled right through it. I never stopped to look at the clock. I never said, how far are we in? How much more do I have to go? They really did a great job of just bringing me right into an episode, throwing some stuff based on having seen the other 2 seasons that I cared about, and melding them. We're still in Miracle, but we're also seeing Kevin back in his job as a police officer, and this mixing of roles where his ex-wife is now married to the guy, and that was his next door neighbor. And it just was a really good first episode. I totally applaud it.
This was far and away the thing I loved seeing the most all week long. I loved it. I loved that brief moment of starting with just pure joy and everything's right. And that doesn't mean everything isn't messy. It's like now that they're letting everybody into Miracle, it's really crazy messy. It's insane messy. And you got people arguing about how tall their inflatable Gary Busey balloon can be because Gary Busey's coming back. I know it. And you see Kevin calm and in control, looking handsome and dapper as hell, sporting his beard, and with his son, you see him happy, and you see him showing exquisite leadership skills, and that, rather than meeting force with force, he figures out what he really wants, what he can get as a result
first
of it.
vignette, I half expected it to be an imaginary scene, right? Where he's like, he's imagining a happy land where things are going well and is working with the son, right?
Yeah, and then Bryce is sniping from the chat, pointing out that it does start with a drone strike, and
yes,
then,
that's right.
but I mean, from that 3 years later stuff, finding a balance, and even the weirdness of seeing, I guess he's psychic now. No, wait, they're running a scam. I don't know how I feel about that. And then they shred the money as if to say, like, it's about closure. They have to do something. It was so great. And then that stark moment of darkness when he throws the bag on his head and just I'm like, is he killing himself? And I'm like, but he's not dying. Is this like an autoerotic asphyxiation thing? And then it's like, that's weird. And I didn't know. Like I went back and watched. I'm like, well, I don't see any rhythmic motions or anything, so I don't know what's going on. And
no,
then
he can't die. And I think it's just like a thing for him to be like, well, let me see what happens today.
Well, and it was not clear to me that was the mythos at that moment, because that happens.
But that was established last season.
Well, I thought it was just a miracle, but it wasn't until the
because he did it twice, right?
Right, but it wasn't until, I mean, again, could have been a nutty day or whatever, but this whole Gospel of Kevin thing has established that, no, for 3 years we've been watching you not die over and over and over again.
And it's become a thing for him. I was a little disappointed we didn't see him go somewhere, because that's what they established last season is like, oh, when you die, you travel, you learn some things, and then you come back. And I thought, oh, he's probably, it's like tourism for him. It's like visiting or calling a friend. He asphyxiates himself so he can go chat with somebody, and then he comes back. And like you say, it was a little jarring that we just saw him do that, and then we don't. I guess they're saving that for a future episode of why he does that.
Yeah, I thought they did a great job of him being about to burn the Gospel of Kevin, but then being reminded that something very interesting might happen in 13 days. And then, like literally with the skywriting, and it's well, let's just hold off on that for a bit. And I don't know, it's so weird that, yes, I know there's going to be drama and conflict and painful aspects to all of this. And they were already intimated that something terrible happened to, is it Lily? Was that the baby?
Yeah.
They, and and Nora's got a broken arm and stuff. And then there's that conflict. His son, has to straight up kill a man in self-defense. I know it won't be all sunshine, but my two favorite moments in the series so far have been the end of last season when everybody comes together in this weird family way at the house, and just the amount of positive energy, however brief. And I know this is the beginning of the journey. We always start off at the Shire, and then we gotta end barely stumbling away from Mordor, right? But for right now, I'm very, very happy to see the Shire.
Yeah, I'm still a little put off by this weird flashback 1800s scene at the beginning, because we had that sort of primitive caveman scene at the beginning of last season, and I know they're just kind of flavoring. They're not really plot elements, but the rest of this episode was just brilliant in its way of, we're going to paint you a sunny picture that's marred with speckles of dung, and you're barely going to notice that they're there. But, I love this idea that they're just going to slowly unpick this pretty picture that they've painted over the course of the season. And of course, they also gave us a tease ahead to a very older Nora existing in an Australia that I assume is sometime in the future.
Well,
that was Nora?
Yeah, see, I watched that scene 3 times, didn't know who it was, finally went online and found a synopsis. I'm like, oh, I guess that was Nora.
Oh, yeah, I recognized her right off.
I did not. And
she
also,
looked like she had red hair. I thought it was
just
someone we were supposed to know about.
Yeah, correct. And also, it was not remotely obvious to me that this was Australia. Like, was there? I went back and listened for accents, and
she had one.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. Maybe I know too many Australians to where it didn't stand out as odd to me or whatever. I don't know.
Get it? You know Australian.
Yeah.
Accent dropper.
Well, I guess you know what it is. I guess because think about it, like we do so much of our hanging out on the internet with so many friends from all over the world. Like when I hear an accent, that does not make me think, "Oh, I'm in England with Will Harris." It's like
you're accent blind. We got it.
Yes, okay.
No, that's fair.
I don't
fair.
see.
You
accents.
don't see accent. I get it.
Yeah.
No. There weren't a lot of tip-offs there, and even the accent of the one person we heard was pretty light. But I just took it as like, well, I know we're going to Australia this season, and this looks different than Miracle, so I'm assuming that's where we are. Okay, that woman sounds kind of Australian. I guess that's where we are. And then you probably don't watch the next week on stuff.
Yeah, correct.
And that gives a little more confirmation of that too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, that's it for Spoilerin Time. We will continue watching The Leftovers. Are you going to watch Fargo? We're starting to get a bunch of stuff. American Gods.
Man, when it rains, it pours, dude.
Yeah.
I can't not watch Fargo. What time frame is it set in?
I think we're back to the present, but I don't remember if it's before or after the previous events. I think it's after.
Well, we were never in the present. Even when it was in 2012 or 2013, it was set in like 2003.
Sure, but we're back. We're back closer, is what I meant.
But I mean, okay.
We're back. But I don't know exactly when.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So much good television. I'm going to do my best to watch it all.
Me too, man. I don't know how we can handle it. Such a burden.
Jackie Hearn says that Ewan McGregor plays two characters. Oh, man, does he have the acting chops to pull that off again?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And American Gods is coming too. So anyway.
Oh, dude, American Gods, the buzz is incredible on that.
I know.
Like Game of Thrones incredible.
Yeah. Was looking forward to it all. Next week for sure, though. Better Call Saul, Leftovers, and The Expanse, and of course Justified. We'll talk to you then.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.